welcome to another video. I'm Chris, G4NAB, and we're going to build SvxLink. Our software is remarkable. I use it primarily with Raspberry Pi, and we're going to show you each step of the way on how we create SvxLink for a simplex or repeater simply by using a script. And this is what we're going to use. The Raspberry Pi Imager, currently version 1.85. So first of all then, what we have to do is choose our device. Because there are so many devices and we are wanting to use Bookworm as the operating system without a desktop, we will do the following. We click on No Filtering. We want to choose the operating system, and we do this by clicking on that, and then there's Raspberry Pi OS Other, and here we go. We've got Bookworm with desktop or Bookworm with no desktop. We're going to go for Bookworm with no desktop environment. We want to choose the storage. By this time, of course, you will have put in a card, and we are going to use that one there. It's a 16 gigabyte SD card. Now we click on Next. Do we want to apply custom OS settings? We don't know. What are they set at? So we'll edit them. And here we have the customization screen. We're going to keep it as name of Pi. Username is Pi, and the password is whatever you like to call it. Normally the default password is Raspberry, but you can do whatever you like. This happens to be my LAN configuration for wireless Wi-Fi. You don't need to use Wi-Fi if you are going to connect the device directly to the Ethernet, but you can double up on it if you wish. The locales, this is usually the country in which you reside and your natural keyboard layout. Next important thing is to go to Services and use the password authentication and enable the SSH, otherwise you won't be able to follow the next steps. If you allow public key authentication, you can only use it from the machine in which you install it. It makes things complicated, but secure. These three can be checked or otherwise, depending on how you feel. Save those settings. We're going to apply these customization settings with yes. We're going to write over anything that might be on the card, so if you have used it for another purpose, you want to keep it, then save the data or use a new card. We're going to continue. It's now going to prepare to write. It's downloading the operating system. It is now writing the SD card. Having gone through the writing procedure, we're now in the verify stage. Incidentally, I'm using a Raspberry Pi 4 with a modified sound card which enables me to control the PTT of the transceiver to which I shall connect. The SD card has now completed its formatting, and we're now ready to transfer the card to the Raspberry Pi. So we will click on that to remove the card from the reader. The next stage is to locate the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. In this case, I have already determined that it is 192.168.1.241. So I'm going to use that to be able to communicate directly to the terminal in which we can then talk and program the software for SvxLink. There are a number of ways you can do this. The most favourite of all, I suspect, is probably putty, but from the Chrome browser you have a rather useful extension built in that can do it all for you. The Chrome extension can do wonderful things for you, and this is it. You click on the Chrome extension in the bar at the top of the Chrome page, and you get this window here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a new connection. We type in here user pi and the IP address. Port is usually standard 22, so we're going to leave that blank, and we're going to go enter. Do we want to continue? Yes, we do. Let's go yes, YES, and it will now like the password, standard password, and we are in. So we are now actually communicating directly with the terminal. I have a script that is built into my GitHub. My GitHub location is github.com/Foxtrot5 Victor Mike Romeo F5VMR, where I've got a number of repositories. However, the one that we're going to be concerning ourselves is the SvxLink Builder, which we'll come on to that in just a moment. But first of all, we will need to do some updates. The standard way to update, of course, is sudo apt update. And I want to run the upgrades at the same time, so we're sudo apt upgrade, and whatever character you call that. It could be the dash, or it could be some other character name that you get into that character, but -y is what I use. So we permit the operating system to become updated. We do this now rather than later. Although the script is capable of running these updates, there have been some changes to Debian OS 12 brackets bookworm that tend to cause a little bit of an upset. So we'll let that run just for a moment. We'll come back to it when it's completed. Progress is nearly at its end, as you can see by the progress bar, but the RAMFS configuration does take the longest. This can take up to 10 minutes depending on the age of the operating system. So now that has been completed, one thing that the operating system does not contain is the ability to install from the GitHub directly. So what we have to do is to add the commands to enable it. Sudo apt install git. We'll add -y because it has some other interesting features that if we don't do -y, it will ask us why anyway, so we might as well add it now rather than wait for having to add the response. So we'll install that. So you see that doesn't take any time at all. Now we want to actually run the software to enable us to install SvxLink. I'm going to add a proviso here. This is a standard SvxLink with either a repeater or a simplex node. If you want to mess about with it later, then you will need to learn a bit more about SvxLink, but this should give you an up and running node for UHF or VHF or even HF as a simplex node or repeater to include echo link, module meta information, and one or two other small features. So we're going to now install the software. First of all, we'll have to download it in order to get it to run. Sudo git clone, and now we go to my GitHub location, https://github.com/f5vmr/SvxLink Builder, no spaces, all in lowercase. If you do anything different, then it won't work. So with that, enter. It's now cloning the information. It's as quick as that. All we've done is actually load a few files, including a text script that will then operate the rest of the system. Now the commands are very simple. //SvxLink Builder /pre-install.sh. Pre-install, because this is a script that runs to install the ancillary software, configures the sound cards within the system, and prepares your Raspberry Pi to be totally dependent on the transceiver to which it will connect eventually. It will also change the order of the sound cards that are built onto the Raspberry Pi, blacklisting them, enabling your own sound card, the USB sound card that in my case that I've plugged into it, to become the prime sound card for the system. So off we jolly well go. It is confirming that the OS is Bookworm and the user is Pi. This is why I stress it is important to get these things right in the first place. It's now running the script. First of all, we want it to maintain a log. So the log is going to keep a track on what could go wrong. So if it does go wrong, we can refer to it later, but for the most part, very few failures occur. It's now installing the additional software that is required to run it. It also will reorder the sound cards and prepare SvxLink to be installed, finally installing the software towards the end. We are now in the stage of installing the dashboard. SvxLink server is now installed. It's now unpacking all the ancillary software that goes with it. The PHP, which enables the running of the dashboard. Qt5, which I'm told is shortly to be made redundant into Qt6, but we'll wait and see. Graphic toolkit. Now setting up the GPIO service, which in our case is redundant. It's adding some modifications to the PHP files in order that we can properly run the scripts that are built into the dashboard. Yes, we are using Python somewhere along the line. is now removing the remote TRX service, which is installed by default for some reason, shutting that down, restarting SvxLink, installing the dashboard configuration, running the services, and then rebooting the card. Now technically the system has halted and rebooted. We won't know this for a few minutes whilst it does so. Confirming that we no longer have a connection. So what we need to do is to restart our connection to the Raspberry Pi. Simply done, we just go back to our connection dialog. Because that window is closed, we'll restart the connection dialog in exactly the same way as we did before. And enter. And again, we are now ready, so we'll install the password. And we're now back in the system. Now you recall we used the command pre-install previously. That is still listed in our history. Well, it should be. There it is. What we do, we just use the cursor, shift it along a bit, remove the PRE, and we'll go for the install this time. Immediately asks, what language do we want to use? Now we can use English, French, English, the USA variety, or Spanish. Well, we're going to be difficult and go English, shall we? And welcome to the world of SvxLink. We are about to configure SvxLink to the specifications provided. They will replace those held in the SvxLink default configuration. I just want to add a little proviso again here, is that I have created an svxlink.conf which overwrites the basic one in order that we can get all the opportunities to change for whichever system we're going to be using, whether we're going to be using a modified sound card or not. Anyway, to change them in the future we can do so in the web dashboard. The first change will be to the USB sound card in use, which has been done, and then there'll be some changes to the SvxLink configuration. At the end of the configuration we will be able to access the dashboard and the fixed IP address, of course, that we already know, but it may change. We'll watch that as it happens. Okay. Do you have an SA2ONG device fitted? No, we don't in this case. If we did, it's a little bit more complicated, but we won't go into that here. We're going to say no. Are we fully modified for transmit and receive? No, we're not. Are we fully modified for transmit only? Yes, we are in our case. So we're going to have UDEF commanding the transmit and GPIOD controlling the receive. Okay. Now then, what do we want? Do we want a repeater or do we want simplex? Do we want to connect to the standard UK SvxReflector, which is currently working? We'll comment on that in a moment. Or in that case, I'm going to make a repeater node with the reflector. So we have to configure the transmitter and receiver to work two transceivers which we bolted back to back virtually with the interface in between. Okay, node call sign. Now then, here's where things get a little bit more complicated. In the UK now, we can actually have a device which operates less than 5 watts under your own call sign. If you have selected a call sign, then do so here. It's the RF type call sign G4, or NAB in my case. Okay. It's now installing the voice files. Now the voice files have been created in various locations. English GB is resident on my own website. English and Spanish is elsewhere. Now dashboard name. Now this is the name that you allocate to your dashboard when you want to get into it later. It does have a default of SvxLink and it has a default password of password. So you might want to change this because you don't want other people accessing your dashboard and changing the installation or the configuration. So we'll do that. I'm going to stick with SvxLink because it's easy for the moment. Okay, my dashboard password, as I've explained, I'm going to keep it as standard as password in my case. You might want to change this now. Okay, the dashboard is installed. Note that your IP address is 192.168.1.241, which it was in when I started it in the first place. And it's on Ethernet 0. Okay. Now then, your SvxReflector key, you have to obtain that from me or from the administrator of the SvxReflector. Instructions will be put in the text at the bottom of this video. It so happens I have a standard one for myself, which I shall put in there. We have selected a no type repeater with a UK SvxReflector. If you have another reflector to go to, you can change that later. Now then, the COS direction. It all depends on how it works. Is it active high when the squelch is open, or is it active low? Normally it will be active high. Now then, if you're running with GPIOD, to what port will you be connecting the COS signal? And have you got a suitable buffer circuit in place? Remembering that Raspberry Pi do not like more than 3 volts on the GPIO at any time, obviously they make a voltage divider to or a buffer to trigger that appropriately. Again, this is the pin. I'm selecting GPIO 23 on the right hand side, but that's how you count it is down to looking at your diagrams and not mine. Okay, now then, what clock time do you want to run it on? 12-hour clock or 24-hour clock? You can toggle that like so. That's running on 24-hour. Now the CW amplitude. You can have your identification for your node in CW or voice, but I'm suggesting that you set up your CW levels in any case here, and it has to be in a minus. So we're going to go minus 12. It can be minus 10 as standard. This means that it will be minus 10 dB lower than the voice active on the channel at the time. So it will not drown out the voice. What tone pitch? Normally on CW on HF is around about 650 Hz. So we're going to 650 in there. And what word speed would you like? Well, I'm going to suggest about 95, which is around 15 words a minute. Now then, the periodic time intervals. As you know, the law requires that the legislation, rules, regulations require that you notify your call sign once every 15 minutes. Sounds good to me. We'll do 15 minutes. On the hour we can have it to a long ident if you want to, so we do a long ident on the hour. We can also include the time. So this is where we toggle those variables. Do you want a short voice ID enable or a short CW ID enable? I like having a little, just a CW ident at 15-minute intervals and a announcement by voice on the hour. And then the Roger beep. It could be a single tone, or a K, or a T, or no sound at all. I like having a K in mine. Now then, there's an idle tone for repeaters, and it's a sort of doing noise. I'm sorry about that, but yes, that's what it sounds like. You can have a one with the tones are quite wide, in which case it sounds a bit sort of clanky, or you can have a nice smooth chime noise, which is what I prefer, or you can have a pip, or you can have silence. Some people opt for silence and some ask like the pip. I'm going to go for the chime. Current idle timeout. This is the time that the repeater remains transmitting its carrier after a current QSO has finished. You can make it long as you like or short as you like. I'm going to go for 10 seconds, which is quite long enough. And that's updated to 10. Do we want to configure METAR? We'll do this just for fun. Now, METAR gives airport information, live airport weather data from the International Weather Service. We'll configure this module. I've installed a number of airports in the British version. We like to know what's going on locally, so we're going to stay fairly local to Newcastle, which is my current location. But I also like to know what's going on Edinburgh and Glasgow and perhaps Leeds, Bradford. And we've got flights from Newcastle to Heathrow and Southampton. That'll do for the moment. Now we do have Belfast, Aldergrove and Belfast City, so we'll add those in as well. Now then, we want a default one. Because we're located near Newcastle, we'll have the default airport as Newcastle. Now, do you want to set up Echo Link? Let's say we do. Now your call sign, how is it registered? Is it G4NAB, -L or -R? In my case it's -R, because I'm part of the super repeater that is the SvxPortal. My Echo Link password obviously is going to be personal to you. And my sysop name of course is Chris, that's me. My output frequency for my repeater is going to be 145.675 with the input obviously 600 kHz below. And the location here is Ashington. Spelled correctly would help. Ashington. Installation is complete. We're now going to go to the dashboard. And here we are on the dashboard. So what we're going to do, we're going to put in our IP address. And there we have our dashboard. At the moment, it's running as duplex. What I just want to do is to adjust the size so we can see the whole of the screen. And there we are. We'll just look around the screen first of all. We have two lines of menus. At the just top we have the node name, and we have the display information, and then we have the full edit system, and then we have the SvxLink information screen on the left hand side, and the activity. Currently there's no activity. And then we've got what we've got connected. We've got the repeater logic and we've got the reflector logic. The modules we have loaded are help, parrot, echo link, meta information, and TCL voicemail, which is currently not configured, so we're going to lose that shortly when we go to edit. Our standard talk group default is always 0 in this case. You can change it, but I'm suggesting for the moment we're going to leave that. We're also monitoring talk group 235, which, as you know, if you're a DMR user, is the MCC base code for the majority of talk groups in the UK, and of course user numbers 234 or 235. There is no active talk group, and we are currently repeater status listening, and we are connected to the SvxPortal UK network. We'll look at that shortly, but let's leave it for the moment. We have no Echo Link users connected. The system ID information in the last reboot was at 11:15, which is not bad because it's 11:31 now, and we started building this at around 11 o'clock. So you see how quick it's gone through. Currently editing, we are not authorized to edit. So what we're going to go up to is click on Authorize, top right hand of the corner of the menu screen. So remember our dashboard username and our password, and we submit. And you look at the lower left hand column, the editing is now changed to authorized. So we want to authorize or edit some of the SvxLink material that we've got installed. We click on SvxLink and this SvxLink configurator pops up. We don't need to change anything here for the moment. Just to explain a couple of things. That where there is a tick, there is no comment. Where there is no tick, there is a comment, which means that the line is non-functional. Where if there is a tick, then there is no comment and the line is live. So we can scroll down. Now SvxLink has a number of paragraphs. People like to use the word stanza, but it's more like a poem, so we'll forget that idea. We'll stick with paragraphs. And we go down to our first block, which is simplex logic. And as we are using a repeater, we can forget all about that connection. We'll scroll on down to repeater logic. Repeater is live. RX1, TX1 are the transmitter and receivers that are active. Now we have a number of modules. Now we can click into the module box, and as I said earlier on, we want to remove the TCL voicemail because that's non-operational. So we backspace over that, remove the comma, and click out of the box. Call sign is G4NAB, which we've explained, and we've got the short ident interval of 15 minutes and the long ident interval at 60. Our time format is set to 24 and the CW amplitude is at -12 dB. Let's say we want to speed up the more, so we can actually type in 120 there, 120, so that's a fairly rapid identification. The next two lines are not used because they have been commented out, and we'll scroll on down. When we transmit CTCSS only when the scroll is open, that is also commented out. If you want to transmit CTCSS, then you have to enable that in the transmitter as well. We'll come on to that shortly. Our idle timeout is set to 10 seconds. We are opening on 1750 for legacy equipment, so 800 milliseconds of 750 Hertz tone will open. Now we want to open on squelch because my transceiver is in a CTCSS built in, so we can open it on squelch, and we'll make that as short as possible, and we'll uncomment it. And we also want to open squelch flag open, which means that the first transmission everybody will hear. If you don't have that set, then the first transmission will merely open the repeater, and it's only the second transmission which will pass. So we opened that, now it's going to be fully qualified operation. Idle sound interval, leave it at 3000, that's pretty good. And the rest of the information is not required for the moment. If you want to ask questions, then please do so in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Now, because we are connected to the SvxLink reflector, this is the reflector logic which controls that information. The host is SvxPortal-uk.dtns.net. There is a possibility that this may change in the future, but for the moment it remains as that. Host port is 5300 and it is 100% priority. My call sign to get into the node is G4NAB only. I don't want that. I want that to be indicating that it is a repeater, so I'm going to put -R. This won't be the RF ident, this is going to be the identification only to reflector logic and the SvxReflector itself. Monitoring talk groups. Now then, I like to listen to another couple of talk groups, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, which is the Yorkshirenet. And they also want to have access to a local talk group which I'm working on here at the moment, 23561. I can also make available other talk groups as I wish, and I can do that by software and DTMF codes for using a transceiver. Talk group select timeout. You can adjust that to 60, 90, whatever. Now the event handlers and the node type. Now the next, this is very important. You want to install a node info file. Now I'll show you how to do that momentarily. So we need to enable that. The default language is EN_GB. That has to be present. Right, scrolling down to link to reflector, this has to be active for you to connect to the reflector. 9 gives you the command DCMF 9 to commence any commands that go to the reflector, as opposed to 2 which goes to Echo Link. Is default active? Everything else is set correctly. Now there's lots of paragraphs here which I'm not going to go into at the moment. They will become apparent as you learn more about SvxLink. But the most important ones in this case are the receiver, which has been already set to have a GPIO-D control. We don't need to worry about anything that's set there because we're not dealing with CTCSS at the moment. Our squelch GPIO chip as is being installed, and the GPIO line is also set. and that should be it until we scroll on down to the transmitter. Transmitter is a high draw because it's using the onboard chip of the sound card to control the transceiver for the PTT, and it has its own parameters. PTT type is high draw, HID device is high draw 0, and HID PTT pin is GPIO 3. And they are the only settings that you'll need. What you need to check is if you do have sound problems, that both the TX1 and RX1 sound card settings, not too far back, we come to RX1. I've got ALSA : plug HW : 0, and that your sound card is also 0. I'll show you how to confirm that momentarily. And we scroll right to the very bottom, we've got the location information, which has in fact got to be enabled. So if we go back up to the top to global, click on location information, scroll all the way back down to the bottom, and make sure that all this information here is set correctly. Now then, this has to be set in SvxLink mode. Oh, that's supposed to be the other way around. There's 1.32.48W, so I'm west of Greenwich, and I am 55.10.32.52 north. And my call sign to Echolink is set correctly as ER, and the frequency is going to be set at 145.675. Transmit power is set correctly at 5 watts, and then again, time you go through a duplexer and stuff like that, and it's going to be the correct ERP. Don't need a tone, and you've got to have a comment. Okay, we're going to save that, and it's reloaded. As you notice on the left hand column, the number of talk groups has increased to those monitoring. However, we're not finished yet, because as we've enabled Echolink, we need to configure Echolink properly. If we go to Echolink configurator, we need to check that Echolink is on. There's a timeout. Mute logic linking is set to 1 and on. And that, whoops, not going to supposed to see that. And your details are all in there, and the password has been set correctly. That's what I'm trying to say. And you must have the description enabled. You can change what you like in there. But it has to be enabled. Prefer, if you're using a repeater, not to set a Roger sound, because the repeater will do it for you. Save and reload. Now technically, if you go to log, you should see that it's connected correctly. Connection is established to Echolink, and I've got Echo 4 Frankfurt, Germany, so that is working fine. However, there seems to be an issue where SvxPortal-uk.ddns.net is saying not connected. That's probably down to authorization and my bad typing. However, let's just go over a couple of things in the dashboard before I show you the reflector. Firstly, we'll look at the talk groups. There's a list of talk groups built in. These are not by any means definitive. This just gives you an idea of the talk groups that can be available in the UK system. However, we can add more if we want. And you can add more that aren't listed. Now we want to settle the audio system as well, because that might not be set correctly. We go to a mixer on the second line. Now then, to get the system working correctly, we need to increase the output to the transmitter, which is counterintuitive because it's marked as headphones. But as the setting is set up, we're going to go for 65 in there. Microphone is not used because we use the audio capture in the USB sound card, so we'll set that to 0. And we want to at least 25 in the audio capture. I'm actually going to go for something really obscene and go 45. I find that's a pretty good level. And it automatically sets to 44 when you click on apply settings. So there you go. That's the sound set. Just to confirm that you've got in Meta information, you have all the airports set. EGNT set as your start default airport. Now then, the node information. This is where things get a little bit more complicated. So what we need to do is we need to go to the portal to generate this information for us. SvxPortal, as I explained, has got a particular IP address. SvxPortal-uk.ddns.net:81. Here we have the portal displayed. As I also have explained earlier on, that I've got something wrong in my settings. We're going to correct those, so we do explain. So G4NAB is not my current node that I've created. This is a node which I have installed for experimental purposes. But you will see that there are a number of repeaters already built into the system, including GB3BD in Bath, BW which is in Yorkshire, KT which is Keighley, Yorkshire, MH which is down in East Sussex close to Gatwick Airport, MW and WK, oops, go back, WKYJ are in Warwickshire, and we've got other subsystems here in various parts of the country. MB5WP is also in Yorkshire, MB7ILH is in Lighthorn in Warwickshire, ITN-R is a system located in Luton, NA9PL is a repeater in Chicago, QSOS UK is a system based in Yorkshire, and we have 4 nodes which are currently in Sweden, and 1 repeater in South Africa presently near Johannesburg. Normally you have a few more on there, but they're currently undergoing some modification where ZS6 Charlie Mike Oscar is building a complete new system. We also have a connection to France. Now France has a peculiar SvxLink system because it's based upon a very old version of SvxLink and currently can only operate on fixed reflectors at the moment. So I've allocated a spot where we can actually talk to them in their chat room on talk group 208. Right, let's look at adding some systems that we need to put into our repeater. We want that node info. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to log in. I have my own access code, of course, and password, and login. And I'm about to go to my stations. These are my stations that I can access presently. Can't access all of them, I'm only accessing some of them to help out. But what we want to do is to generate a node info JSON file. So we click on that. My node location is Ashington. System operator, of course, is G4NAP. Now, tone to talk group mapping is not required in the UK reflector. So we can ignore all that information and go down to the map. The location name is Ashington, and the latitude in this case we'll have to do somewhat differently, and the longitude is all done digitally, and the locator is India Oscar 95 Foxtrot Echo. We're going to leave that as A and A. We're using COR as our scratch type, or not. We're using CTCSS, thinking about it, because that's in there as transceiver. Transmitted power is no more than 5 watts. Antenna direction is -1 because it's omnidirectional, and the height of the antenna is about 3 meters above sea level. And we're going to type in a vertical omnidirectional antenna gain around about 6 dBi, and the frequency is 145.675. 145.25. We have no CTCSS to talk group parameters, and we can generate our JSON file. It generates a save as dialog where you can save the name of your file, which is standard as node_info.json. Save that on your PC. So, and we're going to enter, and we're going to put in our password. As you notice that the dialogue has changed since we were last in, we now got a pretty picture of the node. But what we want to do is to introduce what we have in our node JSON file. So what you do, you go to the one that we've just downloaded and saved, and you open it up in Notepad and select all the text that's in it and Control C for copy. Now we come into our dialog box, which you've made bigger for your convenience, and we want to use the nano editor. Nano /etc/ SvxLink /node_info.json. This is the current information. So what we need to do, I'll just do it for demonstration purposes, there is to highlight it all. It won't do any good, because what you have to do is go to the first line and you go hold down Control and push K and delete everything that's in there, and you go to that which is in Notepad, which is where you've already clicked on Control C for copy, and you come in here and you click on Control V to paste, and then you go Control O to save it with the same file name, and Control X to exit. Well, I'm going to Control X for that because I've done that already. Now we need to find out what our problem was earlier, but first we will check on the status of the sound cards. And the way to do that is to A play -L, and you see that I've only got 2 sound cards fitted. One is card 0, which is what we want to find USB card 0 sat at, so that is correct. But what we have got in here is card 1, which is a loopback card that I have created for future expansion for streaming your node to the internet if you wish to do later. Doesn't take up any more time or effort to do this, so I built it into the script. But what we want to find out is why our system isn't working. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually restart our simplex, our system. And we do this with sudo system ctl restart SvxLink. That's not going to help us completely. We want to find out why it's failing. So we're going to go with a vertical bar and issue another command, tail -f -var log svxlink.log, so we can see what's happening when we restart it. And I've made a spelling error somewhere. Control command not found. Okay, let's read what we are. Of course, system, not system. System. Okay. Access denied. Error message. Okay. So that tells me something has gone wrong with the password. I know what it was. I gave a password that was in lowercase. The password should be in fact in uppercase. So what we'll do, we'll Control C, and we can do exactly the same thing rather than go back to the dashboard to change it. We can change this as follows. etc svxlink svxlink.conf, and we'll scroll down, not quite so fast, and we'll change our authorization key to caps and save the file, and then we shall restart SvxLink, and then we have all the information that is showing that we're connected. And to confirm this, we'll now go to the dashboard, and here we're back on the SvxReflector dashboard, and you can see that a G4NAB-R is now correctly displayed amongst all the other stations that are likewise connected. This has been a concise description of SvxLink, and there is more to it, but it gives you an overview of the possibilities. I hope that's been of benefit to you. I will look forward to the next one. Please make comments at the bottom, where you will also find some other information as it develops. Bye for now.